There you go. The unifying theme for my presentation is time. Time in the intergenerational sense. So I want to read this quote to you, and I want you to think about the words. A vision without a task is but a dream. A task without a vision is but drudgery. A vision with a task is the hope of the world. Think about it. So in terms of our new reality, again, I want you to read the words while I tell you a story. And my keynote presentation at a national conference in Australia in 2016 really put things in context for me because, you know, our climate has changed. I've seen that as a water resources engineer over the last 20 to 30 years, just the changes that have taken place. So, you know, we now talk about floods and droughts, you know, longer, drier summers and warmer winters. So when I was going to Australia, it was in the context of they had these multi-year droughts, 7 years at a time. And I thought, well, when we talk in terms of, did we have a 3-month drought, a 4-month drought, a 5-month drought? You know, that doesn't sound very impressive. But then I realized once I got down there that the difference is in British Columbia, we basically have no time, no flexibility to adjust during a drought because you cannot make the management decisions in time. And that's what happened to us in 2015 in terms of when we had really the first of 5 years in a row of, you know, the new reality. And so for us, yes, it rains all the time, but we're storage limited. So when our reservoirs are empty, there is no more water. And I had one interview on CBC at that time, and I said, well, what do we do? I said, well, there is nothing we can do. We only have so much left. We have to ration it. That's the bottom line. But I just want to emphasize the did you know statement there about, you know, success in restoring the water balance in altered landscapes. And I think this ties in with Michael's theme, which is really comes down to reconnecting people with the land, and on a technical side, as well as reconnecting hydrology and stream ecology in the built environment, because we have disconnected the two through our actions over time. Soil. Well, I guess it was about 20 years ago that we realized that that soil really is the cornerstone of water sustainability. And, you know, because restoring the balance to the water balance, it starts with soil. And at the time we said, if we cannot communicate this message, this simple message, if we cannot get people to wrap their minds around the significance of soil, all the other language, all the highfalutin stuff, what does it really mean? Because in terms of soil being the absorbent sponge and being, you know, the tool for dry weather and wet weather, if you want to use the phrase sustainability of water supply or sustainability of aquatic habitat, it all comes back to how you manage water. And so, you know, if you have soil, you've got to use less water to irrigate during dry weather. And if you have a soil depth, there's going to be less runoff when it rains, and you're going to have less flashiness in your creek systems, and you're going to have more base flow during dry weather. It's really that simple. So in terms of the vision, the big question is, you know, how do we pull this off? And I want to just give you 4 dots that I'd like you to think about and connect in your own ways. The 4 are instant gratification, quarterly report, career, and intergenerational. If you string those together, you have a time continuum. And I guess what we've seen is that the instant gratification and quarterly reports, well, those are the examples of the worst kind of short-term thinking. And that is what we have to replace with a career perspective, which then leads you to begin to think in terms of intergenerationally, because it basically takes you a career to figure stuff out. And then we have to pass that understanding and that wisdom on to the next generation. So if we can do that, and we can think long-term in terms of 50, 100 or more years, then we can put the balance back into the water balance. And, you know, a takeaway here is that decisions made today, will they ripple through time? Oops. Mission possible. The phrase, regional team, regional approach has been around for years, 50 years, my entire career. And what we discovered by accident some years ago was that if we inserted the word team in between regional and approach, it changed everything. It changes the context, it makes it personal, there's a coachable context. So, but at the end of the day, it does come down to the right people in the right place at the right time and over time. And when the stars are aligned, it can result in pure magic. That's really the experience that I've had in my life on numerous occasions. Cathedral thinking. I urge you to check out the website cathedralthinking.com, which was created by a fellow named Rick Cantinson, the former Tourism Vancouver guy. And, think about what these words mean in terms of a far-reaching vision, a well-thought-out blueprint, and a shared commitment to long-term implementation. And the reason it's called cathedral thinking, when you think about our ancestors 1,000 years ago, and you think about Notre Dame a few years ago when it burned down, it's kind of a reminder that the builders of those great cathedrals in medieval times, they had to think in terms of multiple generations carrying out their work, because they knew when they started, they would never see it finished. And all those workers, for 200 years, 8 generations, it was the same thing. But they had the vision, they had the blueprint, and they were committed. So in terms of, bring it back to where we are today and creating the legacy, and I think this kind of echoes Michael, which is, giving the right language, which is, we want to create a legacy. Yes, it's water need, it's water use, and stream flow in balance with a changing water cycle. And you cannot make people change their attitudes or behavior. The best you can do is influence choices. And so it's all a question about how do you influence choices? And in so many ways, you're really depending on the teachable or the reachable moments. When people's minds are open to an idea, if they hear Michael's presentation and they go, aha, and then they do something different. So really, it's using that term of sustainability, in our case, water sustainability. It's the lens for considering approaches that influence choices. And so I would tie it back to Michael by, why the Partnership for Sustainability has embraced blue ecology and has championed Michael's work, is that, it's a interweaving, it's a different way of looking at things, because at the end of the day, the decisions that we make today, they do ripple through time for good or bad. And the thought I'm going to leave you with in terms of this intergenerational frame of reference when I talk about the time continuum, which is, it's not a sprint. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And that's the significance of the intergenerational way of thinking, the cathedral thinking, the vision and a task. As Bill Derry said 2 years ago, political and economic cycles, swings come and go, right? But you just got to keep on keeping on. And that's it. I'm finished.